Hey there, everybody. Welcome on in to finally, after multiple life path delays on Baka and my parts, getting you back into episode 2. It's kind of our actual first writing episode. We've done some planning. Let's go ahead and actually get some writing maybe done on screen today. So, write a TTRPG with us. See you in a bit.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push a mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts. I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see matter of fact.
Welcome to Write a TTRPG with us. Baka has, oh god, he has cards. We're in trouble.
Yep, I got cards. I got a dice block that is also a dice. I'm ready to play this pig.
What cards do you have? Should be my question right off the bat.
It's a poker deck. It's not the right deck. I was just trying to make an entrance.
You did. I'm like, Baka owns a tarot deck? We're in trouble.
Like 5 seconds. You called me out in 5 seconds. The closest thing I have to a tarot deck is the Pathfinder of Lantaro, which you're not using, but it's probably closer in representation to what we're doing.
Actually, your deck of cards might be closer because the deck of playing cards is based on the deck of tarot. Anyway.
I mean, yeah, but you just wouldn't have the major arcana, I guess, just the minor, I guess.
That would be the case.
Listen, my knowledge of the tarot deck is limited to whatever was in the Persona game, so I might be a little ignorant.
Colloquially, you're on point. Okay, so are we just starting from the top with our document and running through, and however far we get in about an hour is about however far we get, I think, everybody.
Pretty much, because I tried to put as much stuff as I could, given like what I had time for, regardless of my life circumstances. There was the surprise from last time, which may or not mean too much based on how we're going forward with the dice system you chose. So
okay, surprise! Need a surprise.
A surprise! I'm sure everyone was on the edge of their seat. They were biting their nails, finding out what is the surprise Baka's talking about. So, and it had something to do with like part of purchasing dice, which 3d6, since that's the system we're using. That's easy to get. That's like you buy Monopoly and Monopoly Junior, boom, you have all the dice you need. D6s are really cheap to get. Like Bicycle has a 5-pack for like $3 or whatever, a Walmart or Target.
Or even at the dollar store, you can sometimes find them for like Yahtzee game replacement stuff for a couple of packs. That's true.
If you have Yahtzee, guess what? You have 3d6. And if you're daring, if we decide to introduce advantage or disadvantage, the most you'll probably ever need is 4 dice. Originally when I was introducing other dice and we were worried about, like how expensive this would be if we wanted to alter them, which we could still do in your current system, I was going to suggest stickers.
And I know how my community feels about stickers, and I'm like,
exactly.
This is a dangerous topic for this group.
We can go on Super Mario Party with how dumb your dice can be with the custom stickers. And we could probably still use them for like emotional states. Like, for example, if someone gets really angry, we can make a dice that has all 6s and all 1s to show how volatile their mood is, if they're feeling euphoric, or I guess calm with the opposite. We can change all the dice to 3s and 4s, so they get more of an average. And then depending on how angry they are, we can add more angry dice, we can add more calm dice. But mechanics for another day. I was just saying, like, stickers. It's an option.
And for me, I think that's a conversation we are going to have to reconsider once we either do the ability scores, because dice and rolling ability scores, or the 5i. It's like step 5 is going to determine whether or not we need like a downloadable sticker kit that they can print and change on their dice versus a number system for sure. Because the more I've been thinking about the stickers since he and I last met with all of you a couple weeks ago, I'm like, now I want to go sticker designing. And I have some friends who do sticker designing that would love to use stickers for dice. And I'm like, I smell collabs.
And I have something even sillier for sticker ideas. If you want to go full Balatro on your deck and add seals.
Okay,
too.
now I'm curious. Do tell.
So in Balatro, it's specifically a poker roguelike where you have to play hands to get a certain amount of chips, but I prefer points because apparently the ESRB, they get really scared when you say chips in a card game because then they're like, oh, you're gambling. It's like, no, it's
you're gambling. You can't have the kids
gambling. You know, and one of the mechanics is you can add seals or bonuses to the cards, so you either get more chips or you get more multipliers at the end of each hand, which multiplies your chips. And yeah, you need an X amount of chips in a certain amount of hands in order to win, and it keeps escalating, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be a mechanic to like the player's deck based on level ups. But again, we can go over that later. I'm planting the seeds for entropy to grow later.
I think he's already knowing what he's doing and why he's planting those specific seeds earlier than others.
No, I don't want anyone to think I know what I'm doing. It's like, don't go spreading that around. I'm just here to spread chaos and see what happens.
You're good at doing that too, and that's part of the process, honestly.
Yes. I mean, you can't introduce dice without introducing entropy into your game, and then on top of that, cards. So we're already got two different systems of entropy. That being said, that was a surprise.
Mind reminding what people in a general game sense what entropy would refer to, just to recap from last time?
Well, I mean, when it comes to mathematics, entropy means that there's going to be different outcomes. Like, for example, say we're rolling 3d6. I could roll anywhere from a 3 to an 18. So that is 15 points of entropy because those are 15 different outcomes that could happen. Now, 3d6, the entropy is kind of low because there's a bell curve. So you're expected to get something more in the middle as opposed to like a d20.
Yeah, so for those of you who are watching the replay, or you missed episode 1, there's pictures of what he's talking about to help with that visual if you need it. But yeah, so it definitely is going to play big, especially considering that the tarot decks, there's like 78 cards in them. So yeah, that's a much wider pool of entropy than the 3d6.
Yeah, but I predict that this particular system, most of the mechanics are going to revolve around the dice rolls. And then the tarot cards will kind of assist the players, or if you decide to use certain antagonists, it will work against them to kind of level things out. But most of the entropy will be controlled by the 3d6. And then, yeah, the players will have the cards to kind of bail them out of situations that they find themselves in. And we'll work on those mechanics, and we'll keep in mind entropy, like how much entropy you want in your game. And I'm just saying there'll be less than a D20 system because in a D20, you're just as likely to roll a 1 as you are to roll a 20. So you can just as likely fall down some stairs, break your neck, as you are to swing across the chandelier and decapitate a dragon's head.
3d6 on the other hand, you don't have that say. Good sir, good sir. The two other dice are like, haha, watch me spin. So, what era are we starting in? And the literary theme and maybe the rules might be as far as we get. We probably will keep entropy in mind, starting even with the rules, everyone. So, you will probably hear that term come up a couple times. So, shall we begin with step one? What era are we starting in?
Yep, because I understand that your narrative spans the eras, spans the years, and you have characters that live a long time, if not immortal, as they were. So I guess the best way that I've seen that I would propose is to just pick an era you want to start with, because that will determine like what weapons are going to be in popularity, what skills we'll need to attach to those weapons or professions that are in your game in that era. And then going forward, we can go backwards or forwards to kind of fill in the gaps of your world. Because I imagine you might want to go into the past a bit because you'll have such long-lived characters kind of doing the Highlander thing where they're around for so long, they've accumulated so many different skills that may have fallen out of favor. And we'll kind of be going back to like, so people can play those characters that have been around since, before your campaign truly starts. I would also recommend, since you are a author of sorts, writing like a sample narrative of something that could happen in your game, either based on characters already established in your books, or you can make up another party and you can have them just kind of go through like an encounter, but just like an excerpt of like how you would read it in one of your novels, as opposed to like a play-by-play. And that I've seen a lot of books start with that kind of flavor to kind of get people in the moods. Like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I want to play. Yeah, these are the kind of characters I want to make. Yeah, this is the book I want to buy. That's kind of like the hook to get players in.
So there's a couple ways we could do this, and I'm going to try and switchy screens here, and maybe it'll pay homage to let me do what I want to do. Yes. So if we were to do this for my series, I'm pulling out.
Oh no, it's a wheel. Already introducing entropy.
I was going to ask how far up did our entropy level just go? Because I have 4 time eras we could sit this in based on excuse you, ma'am. Well, based on what already is published and what has yet to be published. So I'm like, you know what? I see a couple different ways these weaponry things could go. I think we should take the control of this wheel out of my hands. Let's wheel of entropality. Turn.
Wheel of arrows. Turn. Tell us which arrow we should burn.
I think that one burned enough of itself, honestly.
Thank you,
Alexandria.
Whoops.
Well, we're going to Neftiri's childhood, apparently, or a little bit before. Okay, so we're in ancient Egypt, y'all.
All right. I don't think too many people have explored ancient Egypt outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, and they've gotten it wrong. So wrong.
Oh, God.
Not nearly as wrong as Magic Voyage got Christopher Columbus, but we're not talking about Magic Voyage.
No, we're not. Knowing what I know about the Ptolemaic era and what it led to inspirationally and how it ended, thank you, Arsenway, we're going to go ahead and go this route. So our weaponry definitely is going to be quite a bit basic. But the counter to this is our spell magic is going to be much a bigger pool than. So it might be a worthwhile choice. Just for sake of having a little bit of the two together.
And the reason I put magic so far down the list, because I knew that was going to be something like to consider further down once we got everything out of the way. But hey, at least you know the era that we're starting with, so we'll know a lot of like jumping off points going forward.
Okay, we covered that. So I answered my own question. Never mind. I guess literary theme is next. So as far as this goes, in a TTRPG sense, how do universal truths usually come about?
Well, I mean, I say the literary theme for just like the terminology. And if you go through the rest of my proposals, you'll notice that I'm leaning towards a literary kind of theme for the terms. Since you're an author, that was just a cool way of keeping the terminology with a certain theme that, instead of a game master, we have a storyteller. Now, and then I kept the term PC, but I switched it to protagonist characters.
Instead of playable or player characters by comparison versus what are we going to call NPCs?
Non-protagonist characters.
I was going to say, are we going to go that route with this?
I mean, it's a proposal. We can also call them foil characters for characters that oppose the NPCs. They're not a big deal. We can call them antagonist characters for the major ones. And then might be a little annoying because then we'll have like I don't know what a big bad would be other than like a nemesis character, I guess.
Well, yeah, because that opens you up to a couple of different terms. You're right with the protagonist, antagonist. I can spell. Anti-hero would fall in here.
Oh, now
foil.
Here's the thing. That opens up the avenue to anti-villain characters, which I don't think is ever discussed as much. It's like an anti-hero assumes anti-villain. And I propose Robin Hood is an anti-villain.
Yeah!
Yeah, that's in your brain forever now. Go ahead and debate me, I dare you.
I mean, okay. This is not the place to have this conversation.
I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. All right. Pin that for later, another day.
Batman, an anti-hero or an anti-villain? Chew on that for another chat, everybody. What other types of characters are we missing? If you are live or replay, comment, help out here. What are we missing?
It's antagonist, anti-hero, anti-villain, a foil.
Because you mentioned one and I didn't hear it.
Nemesis.
I heard it. Thank you.
Nemesis. Nemesis.
Okay, a nemesis and an antagonist are not always the same thing. The nemesis can be the anti-hero. Hello, since you mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! Seto Kaiba. Anyway.
I mean, he started off as antagonist, then he became a foil. But,
She said cohort. I like that. Hello, Kimmy. Good to see you. Because that could imply like Team Rocket. I would label them as like an anti-villain cohort or an anti-hero cohort, if you get what I mean, because there's more than one in that group. Okay.
Antagonist, anti-hero, anti-villain, foil. Again, I didn't know all the terms. It's been a while since I took a literary class. I was coming to you like, please tell me more literary stuff. Tell me your secrets, storyteller.
Storyteller. Okay, so I'm not making the correct notes. I'm kind of making the correct notes. You all get to see Jenna only have half a brain because Jenna's not been very great lately. Ma'am. That too. We don't need no dang gone enabler characters. I think we got Robin Hood for enabling the good things.
Don't need enablers.
Jenna, behave yourself. Okay. So would this also, under literary themes, include things like, are we calling them character profiles, or are we calling them normally in Authorlandia, we call them like book Bibles or character Bibles, or we would consider that naming too, or do we just want to keep it as character sketch?
I mean,
What
we
is your
can. I think we'd call it like a profile. We talk about their sheets. Like we can call it a character profile. Most of this, I was just looking up character wikis to see what kind of information, like biography, I guess. The character
I
biography.
appreciate you, Cammy. Yes, very much so. Cammy's trying to balance out the negativity, and I'm like, I'll give you that, but foils are not always negative.
No, they're just to contrast the protagonist. Like
the Weasley twins in Harry Potter are foils to Draco Malfoy's cronies, for example.
Oh, rival.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah, rival.
Because those are not exactly the same thing as a nemesis. Like when I hear nemesis, it's like the person I want to slay until the end of time. Whereas rival's the person.
Yeah, I think a rival is like a very specific foil that actually actively goes out of their way to butt heads with the protagonist. And a foil just kind of brings up stuff about the world that the protagonist kind of has to deal with. It's not always positive, it's not always negative, but it's just there. Like I think Garfield is considered a foil to John Arbuckle or whatever.
Very much so.
Because John Arbuckle's just trying to live, and then Garfield's like, no, you don't get the simple life, you own a cat.
Okay, if that's what Garfield is to John, what is he to Odie?
The nemesis. He's always antagonizing the poor dog. I might be biased. As a dog person, I might be biased.
Is Odie Garfield's nemesis, or is it the other way around?
I don't know.
Started it.
Never really antagonizes Garfield hardly. There are a couple issues he gets the upper hand, but again, you can't really take a comic strip too seriously when it comes to literary works, because they'll break their own literary tropes just for a joke, you know.
Yeah, I did kind of write an essay on that twice in college. Anyway.
Oh, look who I'm talking to.
Hey, anyway. It said comic strip and digest it. I had read Garfield every week of my life for 10 years at that point. Why not?
I had all the books. I had the original books where Garfield was actually like a giant, like freaking lion cat. Like he was huge. And then they shrunk him down, and they still made him like, oh, he's so fat. I'm like, he looks like a normal cat. What are you talking about? And then he'll like break furniture and stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Then I saw his original size. I'm like, oh, you know. But anyway,
I think she just named what Garfield really is.
Character. There you go.
Your name? You heard your name?
Did we call upon the Cheesecake Monk?
No.
Like, did we accidentally summon him? Happy Pie Day tomorrow, I guess? Does cheesecake count? Or is that blasphemy in your household?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure on that. So, first thing we need to establish are some basic gameplay rules. How does combat work? What can protag characters do? What do they roll for? How do they grow? Are you going to use a class system? Something else? So, let's go ahead and kind of address your multitude of questions here one by one. How does combat work? Let's start there.
All right. Well, first, I think the first thing we're going to need to determine is turn order or initiative, which is probably just going to be like everything in your game, it's probably going to be a skill test.
When isn't it, would be my question.
Sorry? Oh, when to initiate?
Yeah, like when is it not a skill-based initiative test?
I guess we can discuss that. I like how Pathfinder 2nd Edition does it, where it's a perception test normally, unless your character is doing something else. Like, for example, if your character is trying to talk his way out of a fight, then they can instead make a diplomacy check. Or if someone decides, I'm going to go hide in case some goblins come out of this closet, they can make a stealth check. So you could have like the bard making a diplomacy check to kind of, talk people down, and that's their initiative. You got the rogue hiding in a corner. They're making a stealth check. Everyone else is making perception. That's like the default to see if they notice like the goblins are coming or whatever monsters pop out. They're like, bunch of smelly humans here. Let's stab them and eat them, kind of thing.
And take their coconuts, because that would be good cookings. So
take their coconuts because they are too poor to have horses.
To you Monty Python fans, you're welcome. So roll for athletics would be a good example here, Cammy.
One of the goblins like no, I'm allergic to coconut. Stop.
You give me an excuse to make a Monty Python reference, I'm gonna shove my shoulder in that door. Just saying.
I mean, that's what we're here for, I guess.
But
and that's
for
up
context, for my writer friends, this is how I wrote books 1 through 5 for the battles. For me, it became I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing the same things on repeat. And this helped me to avoid having characters just go, he punched the guy, dialogue, and he punched the guy, dialogue, and he punched the guy.
I don't want to have someone roll for athletics to see if they trip, unless there's like a circumstance, like a tripping hazard, like there's uneven ground or there's like oil on the ground, because what's going to happen is half of your characters will be tripping every single time they move, and that's not fun and interactive. All right.
That was book 2.
It's like every time you move, okay, make a skill check. Oh, you fail. You're face first in the mud. Skip turn. This is
also a good time to start tracking your rolls, because if you have a dice that favors, say, the 3 out of the 6 all the time, and no matter what they do, they face plant Neftiri, you might need different dice. Yeah.
Several games do have mercy mechanics, which we could introduce into your game if you're interested. For now, let's just stick with the basics. Like first combat, initiative, it should be a roll. And then, what was it? We need to establish the critical fumbles and the critical success ranges on the dice. And I'm trying to remember if I gave you that information already.
No, what I'm working on is the outline you gave me a couple days ago, and I'm just filling it in as notes as we're going with, for kind of their benefit more so than ours.
Odds of 3d6. I guess I'll look it up again. Okay. So here's what I would propose. So getting a 6 on 3d6 or lower would be considered a fumble.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because that would be a 6 out of 18.
Right. That would happen about 4.62% of the time. So that would fall the 5% rating. Let's see. Actually, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then the opposite side, we could say a 14. Wait, hold on. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, sorry. A 15 or higher on 3d6 would be considered a critical success. Because that's roughly about 6% chance of happening. And when it comes to critical hits, we can narrow in based on the weapon. But standard, if you get a 6 or lower, that's about 6% of the time. So that'd be like rolling a 1 in a D20 system. And then if you get a 15 or higher, that's again about 7%. So that'd be rolling an at 20. Again, we'll handle critical hits differently going forward, but that should be established with the rules. And then I was thinking, basically for your system anyway, we have the attributes, which we'll discuss in more detail later. I was going to call them the ability scores. I was going to call them traits. So for any particular situation that you need to roll, you pick a trait that's going to fuel that check. And then if there is an applicable skill or talent, then you add the ranks to that skill, and that's your modifier. So I was thinking your game would be a modifier-driven 3d6 system.
Especially given how some of the spells work as they level up, that makes perfect sense to me.
Again, I propose this because if you do it this way, it will play very similar to a regular D20 system, which some players may be familiar with, and it's really easy. They're like, okay, so I take my attribute. My attribute's like a +3. I have 2 ranks in the skill, so I roll 3d6 and I add 5. Cool. That's the game. Hooray, we did it. We made a game. And I think that would be the main mechanic of your dice rolls is you get your modifiers, you roll some dice, and then you cry because your rolls are terrible.
But that's okay if they're, quote, terrible for this just starting out too, because starting low, you want them to be.
We're hoping that the players are going to have several advantages because they'll have the cards. And we might introduce a mercy system. We can call it something else like grit, like the fact that your character keeps messing up makes them more determined to follow through with the next action. We go over other failure mechanics too, because I think there are some problems. I think there's a lot of problems with some systems not focusing enough on failure. Like everything has to be a success. And I have some proposals for that, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there. That being said, where are we? Still in rules? All right. What can the players do? Here's what I propose. Action economy. Like all the other systems, they try to do something weird, like here's your action, here's your bonus action, here's your movement. So what I propose, during the player's turn, they get 3 actions for the round.
Mm-hmm.
And with those 3 actions, they can do anything they want. They can even, I know this is going to scare some people, move into a crowd of people and attack 2 enemies. Which
that's
I know
not a hit at me, not at all.
They're like, what? It's like, you can't attack twice in 1 round, no penalties. Here's the rub. Those 3 actions, that's for your entire turn. That includes any reactions your character wants to make when it's not their turn. So you go in, you walk into a crowd, and you bop 2 goblins. When those goblins want to bop you back, you're like, oh, I can't defend myself. I'm out of actions. So you kind of need to balance, like, okay, I walk in, I smack, and then I'm going to leave 1 action left. So if one of the goblins try to smack me, I can like get my shield up or I can step back. That's kind of the, like if I overextend, I'm going to get hurt kind of mechanics. And that was my proposal for your game, to make combat and even encounters that are non-combat situations simple. So it's like there are 3 actions, and it can be fun and interactive because they can hold an action back. It's like, I don't know. Do I want to stop this guy from opening this door? Or, gee, while this guy runs past me, do I want to trip him? Do I want to, like try to snatch the lamp from while he's running past me so he doesn't have the lamp? Kind of stupid crap like that. That will make your game a lot more fun and interactive, even when it's not their players' turns. And
that kind of gives them that pressure. Like if you think back to when we were doing like turn-based, text-based RPG style games, you had to pick what your whole party did, and then you couldn't take actions for a bit. This gives that kind of natural, you are forced to just let time be your pressure.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the difference between playing like Magic the Gathering, where you could play instances when it's not your turn, but then you go and play Hearthstone, you put your cards down when it's not your turn, because unless you have secrets down, like nothing happens during your opponent's turn. You just sit there and you just wait for him to beat your face, and then maybe he'll activate a trap card, basically, and that's it. You don't even get to say like, do I want to activate this trap? It's like, nah, it just happens. And I can't tell you how many times I've been baited out of some really cool cards that just blow up a 1/1, and then the guy just beats me in the face for like 17 damage or whatever, and I'm just like, oh.
And this kind of, again, lets time balance. Not necessarily giving you time to actually follow through on something, but it also gives you a chance, if you have a lot of players in the game, is what I'm hinting at here, people. If you have 6 other people playing, you have time to sit there also and think, which works against your fellow players, not in their favor.
Yeah, but what's really cool about giving them just 3 actions and then that's it, the players will be keeping track of what they can and can't do during their turn. Hell, you might even get a character who doesn't know what to do. It just does nothing during their turn, but they get to keep their actions because now they get 3 reactions. Just players, first time they're playing, they're overwhelmed. It's like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. It's like, all right, just pass your turn. You still have your actions. So if you want to, interrupt someone when it's not your turn, just use all 3 of your actions as interrupts. They're like, oh, I could do that? That's cool. That makes this game fun and interactive.
And from a flavor text point of view, that also will help. The element of fate in these stories is extremely important. That helps to play into the whole thing of you think you have control over fate in this world. You really don't, but you think you do. So I like that add-on very, very much as so myself.
Of course. And
any other, go ahead.
We'll get into that more with the cards too, like what they do. All right, so the action economy. Also, when it comes to initiative, I guess something we can tack on. Some systems have all the players decide what they want to do at the same time. And with those systems, it kind of makes combat flow a lot easier when all the players are like, okay, what do we do? And they're not just waiting for their individual turns. Like, well, I want to do this, but I don't want him to be standing there. And it's like, okay, you move over there. I'll nuke the room. And then after I do that, anyone who's left over, you can swing on the chandelier and like drop a brick. Like cool dynamic stuff like that, where it's very difficult to do that in a turn-based system because you have to kind of like wait for everyone's turns to play out. And there might be some monsters in the middle. So, except for maybe like the first turn, because maybe some characters will initiate before the monsters do. And I think first turn, dealing with surprise, you can split up. Okay, these guys go, then it's your turn, then these guys go. But then every round after that, like I think all the players together should be like, okay, what do you do? So, and that I think that's just a way to just make combat flow a little bit easier than just like, just a very rigid turn-based system where it's like, all right, everyone just wait your turn,
It helps with the turn phases of battle to transition from the storyteller's control a little bit easier than from the gamer's control too, which having seen multiple game masters, dungeon masters, storytellers do it in different ways. It's sometimes nice for them to have this option to go, okay, y'all, your initiative, roll now, get back on track, as their way of kind of hustling people together. So I really like that. We might call it maybe something else, though. I'm leaning intuition. We shall see.
Intuition. We can go with a more narrative-driven name. I just didn't think of one at the moment.
That's okay. Because we also have a merit-based system that can be affected by how the player performs in the action economy. We'll put it that way.
Right.
That would feed their XP. We are not even talking about that yet.
No, we haven't even talked about XP. I guess that can lead into our next topic, is whether or not you want to have a class system with levels like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Everyday Heroes, or if you're daring and want to have like a non-level based system like Mech Warrior, Shadowrun, where to level up they're just purchasing new abilities, basically.
And I was just scrolling down right quick to see one note from earlier on that, and nope, okay. That was something else for later then. So with those class systems, because we're going to have to go that route, I think. Just by looking at some of the different items that characters do. Now, my question is, what if, how do I word this? Copyright point of view. How close can we make a class system one thing without actually calling it something else? Like, how many systems use terms like fighter, bard, without us getting sued?
Oh, what if I told you I thought of that? And we can go over that when we get to it. But I was just saying class system, like you want numeric levels or ranks or whatever terms you want. For the most part, we're not going to get hung up on certain terminology. I guess Pathfinder, with all of its infinite wisdom, changed a lot of the names of their abilities and spells to get away from stuff that Dungeons & Dragons already had iconic, but they still call everything spells, skills, feats, because you can't really copyright generic terms for a system. Hell, we could still use advantage and disadvantage. They can't copyright mechanics. So we can still do, yeah. And so we don't have to worry about that, but I would caution against calling a spell magic missile. That's I think where we draw the line. Or Otto's irresistible dance. No chance for that Otto's irresistible dance. Like, call it something else. Call it like Dancing Fools or something like that.
All right, next notes on your end, and we are into the final 15 to 20 minutes, y'all.
I didn't think we were going to get stuck on this, but I guess I should imagine. All right. I think we did accidentally do step 3. What do the dice mean? So I think we accidentally covered that with like the first part, because we did. The only thing I think we can add is the mechanics of like advantage or disadvantage. Like, say, if your character is perceived to be really good at a certain type of skill check, then they should roll an extra dice and then discard the lowest. And then disadvantage would be the opposite. They would roll an extra dice, they roll 46, and then have to discard the lowest. If they're doing something that the storyteller deems like, okay, you've probably never, ever had to throw a spear while being carried upside down, flying through the air in a dragon's talons. You're rolling this with disadvantage. So, or, you decide, okay, I'm going to try to read this ancient text. Do you know the language? No. Okay, you're making a disadvantage. Cool. this sucks, I hate it. Something like that. Like if your character is like completely out of their depth or whatever, they're like, disadvantage. If it's something to do with their background, they've been doing it for years, they have an actual profession that's perfect for that, like give them advantage. Like, and for God's sakes, don't make them roll to see if they trip every time they step out of their tent. They're like, they'll spend half the campaign eating dirt and they'll hate you. Yes, I have made that mistake.
I was going to say, be very careful what character flaws you assign your characters naturally.
I guess another thing about the rules establish certain difficulty class for certain tasks. And it's going to be the same, I think, with Dungeons & Dragons. Like a 10 is like an easy task. 15 should be like moderate. 20 is difficult. 25 is extremely difficult. And then 30 is like, that's some like legendary impossible nonsense. Like, you don't want these players to do it. You should make it a DC 30 and watch them sweat. It's like, oh, that's a lot right now. It's like, sir, I'm rolling a 5. The highest I can get on the dice is an 18. It's like, hey, you get a critical success. And then we could also go into degrees of success. Like, even a critical success, if they don't meet it, they shouldn't like automatically get what they want. They should get like the best case scenario. Like the example I gave before, say it's this ancient lost text they're trying to decipher, and you decide it's a DC 30. And the barbarian goes up there, is like, I don't know the language. I don't know the root language. I don't even have linguistics trained. And I have a -1 in intelligence. Let's go. Rolls an 18. That's a critical success. So overall, it's a 17. So that would be like 13 below the actual DC to make it. So you could still say, okay, best case scenario, you still don't know the language. You're not 100% sure what this passage says, but you recognize like a name. And you can give them like Rathacles or some nonsense or some just a little hint about what they like. Is like, this is about Rathacles, that one ancient like philosopher that was really mad all the time, like, and then the barbarian is like, he's like, guys, Rathacles, it's right here, but you wouldn't just say, here's this passage that you read, because he shouldn't just get whatever he wants just because he rolled an 18 is what I'm saying. And again, we can go over degrees of success, which I did like some systems offer, like if you succeed by 5, you get something better. Then you just barely made it. You succeed by 10, you get something even cooler, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, there's degrees of failure. It's like you missed by 5. That's a near miss. It's like you're fine, but you feel bad. -10, you're in trouble. -15, oh, God. -20, you fall down some stairs, you break your neck. And then if it's like a crit fumble, you can go down like a peg. And then if it's a critical success, you can go like up a peg. So, and again, we can work that in well, and that's going to take a lot of practice to master as a storyteller, regardless of system. All right, that being said, so what do the dice mean? I think we covered most of the dice mechanics. It's like add an attribute, add a talent, get the results, see. And then, of course, bear in mind that some of these tests are going to be opposed. Like we might make it so like, all right, I really want to hit this guy in the face with my sword. So I'm going to roll my stat that I think is agreeable with the sword plus my sword skill. And then he's going to be like, well, I don't want to get my face hit in the sword. So I'm going to roll like either dodge or block, or I'll try my own sword skill for a parry. So you can do a sword clash. And then we can adjust based on nonsense mechanics like what armor are they wearing, what weapons are both of them using, is one of them trying to block with a shield, is one trying to block with the fat on the back of his hands. That's called taking the hit. You know.
And this would this also be, and I'm asking for reasons, are this is where enchantment slots and
Enchantments?
Enchantments?
Enchantment?
Anyway.
Yes,
Enchantments and stuff will come into play.
I'm assuming magic items will come into play when we get there. But yes, I'm sure magic swords will probably hit harder and truer than a rusty knife you got off of a goblin that was probably using it to pick his teeth or scrape poo from the bottom of his shoe. And yes, there is a weapon in Baldur's Gate called the poo scraper. Because goblins are filthy in Baldur's Gate. Absolutely nasty little buggers.
Gross.
They're so nasty. All right. That being said, I guess we'll go on to step 4. I think we've exhausted what we could talk about dice. What are the cards for?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sure we can think of many things to do with the cards, but I think for the most part, they should manipulate die rolls. And here's my proposal on the lesser arcana, because I think the major arcana is going to require a lot of research, because I'm sure they have a lot of meaning that probably isn't explored in the Persona games. So I want to get those right. But here's what I'm proposing for the numbered cards is evens. I think evens should set a dice to a fixed number. And I think the number it should fix the dice to is whatever half that number is. Like a 2.
Whoa.
Yeah, a 2 would turn a dice to a 1. A 4 would turn dice to a 2. And then so on and so forth. Now, an odd, based on whether or not you play it up, face up or face down, would either add or subtract from a dice. So, and again, it would be like a 1 or an ace, I guess. An ace would be -1, +1. A 3 would be -1, -2, +2, etc. And so on and so forth. I was thinking that some arcana would like change how someone uses a card. Like, for example, I was thinking the Hanged Man could force a player to flip a card they're playing to get the opposite intention of what they meant to do. And that was just one idea I had. The Hangman. The Fool, I thought would be funny if someone played another major arcana, the Fool can steal it. So it's like, then it's like, well, it's like, okay, you play that, cool. I'm going to say, I'll take this card from you, and now I have it, and I can do the same thing. Stuff like that.
What he's not telling you all was I was going to relate the major arcanas to the clan or coven they subscribe to. So depending on the clan or coven, or I'm sorry, the suits and the major arcanas to those for use. So yes, this will cause, I can't say the words I want to say, muckery. We'll say that.
And then we can also play with the suits. Like, for example, swords might be best used for like combat situations or strength. So you probably couldn't use a sword to like change the number of like I don't know, cooking some stew or whatever. Or I mean, you could probably just fight a sword for like blacksmithing, and you could probably use a sword, probably not to just to charm someone, but probably to intimidate them, I would imagine. And then coin
swords are the mental suit, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Now coin you could probably use to talk people a lot. That would probably be your number to charm people. Wands. I'm not sure other than making it like nature-based, like what wands could be used for. Maybe magic, I would imagine.
Herbology is a thing in this world.
or knowledge, yeah. And then cups. Like what would cups be used for? I would imagine
Diplomacy normally, or what they refer to spiritually, things of that nature.
Okay, yeah. And that could be like a restriction on, you have to pay attention to the suit as well as the number, like what you could use it for. And we can hammer that out as well, like which suits are appropriate for certain actions, or just give vague concepts of each suit. So, players and storytellers can make their own judgments of which suits can apply to which situations. And then we can make Arcana that say, ignore that, play what you want, you do you, fam.
And given that the view of how to use tarot in practice is exactly those two sides of the coin, you either follow what the artist and creator said it should be, or you follow your intuition of what they present you with, not necessarily a guidebook. So now, that'll be great to play on in here too.
And one interesting mechanic that I kind of stole from Sonic Shuffle. So everyone gets their cards, right, based on whatever we're determining how we get cards. And say they don't like what they have, like none of the suits work, none of the Arcana they can really activate. They could still trust fate and just draw from the top of the deck. But they have to accept it. Whether they drew it face up, face down, that card they have to play. And if he dies, he dies, The whole, you have to accept, you can accept your fate, basically, when you draw from the fate deck and you get something just awful. And that was, again, introducing more entropy based on what you draw.
We're dealing with vampires. I think a lot of entropy is okay.
Those vampires need to die.
Look here, you, Sir Tooth. Amid you throwing them their food fights that keep one Queen Rochelle quite busy, you have every reason to say that to the vampires. Anyway.
Right. Okay, speaking of vampires, because I know your game, your story, your narrative is going to be heavy on the vampires. In your world, garlic. Does that affect vampires, or is that just bullshit?
That's a lie they made up so they can eat all the garlic, because garlic tastes good, yo.
So, I loved my friend John. He said, I think that's something vampires came up with so their food comes pre-seasoned. And I was like, damn.
I awesome. Like what a friend of mine, whom, mind you, she was biracial when she said this. So I'm quoting somebody who is not looking like me white-wise and saying this. She said, here's why I like that lore. It means that all the white vampires got bored and they started giving the white people lore to disbelieve. And I'm like, oh my God, Jamie.
Oh my God, garlic does actually promote cardiovascular health and lowers blood pressure. It's antioxidant.
So why?
And it makes humans taste good.
And it makes humans taste good. But, they like to hog all the garlic for themselves, so that's a lie.
Thought of everything. Okay. I guess so for the last few minutes, because we're about to be over on time, we can go over to step 5 with the protagonist characters, how to make them. Because I did go into depth on step 5B, which is the ability scores. And I was suggesting that the ability scores would be vague concepts that could be applied to multiple situations. So based on what the players or the character wants to do, they can pick one. And I was thinking that each of the traits could also apply to one of your gods. Since there's 5 gods, we make 5 traits, and each trait is like a favored approach to each of your gods.
So this is where we could also get into like the major arcana that's assigned to Nephthys. That is this trait? Question mark.
Well, I was going to get into how arcana can affect a player separate from traits. That might have to be another time because we're running out of time. But here, let me just go over the proposal for the 5 traits. The first one was might. I didn't want to use strength for obvious reasons because that's one of the major arcana. So I stuck with might, which could not only just mean the ability to be physically capable of moving things, but also mentally being able to withstand being moved. Let's see. What was the other point? So endure punishment. Move objects easily with their bodies as well as destroy said objects. And also, I guess in certain aspects, create them, like blacksmithing. And then I also came up with terms, those that lack might. Like those who lack might, if they have like a 0 or a negative number, they're considered puny characters.
Puny god. Anyway.
Puny god. Next one's grace. Those that are graceful are first to act. They strike true. Characters can act unnoticeably, and they can distract or misdirect with their words. Those who lack grace are considered clumsy. The third one was acuity. Those are people who understand what's going on. They can examine the information in front of them, make sense of what's going on, make plans. They can memorize lore, detect distraction and lies. They're better informed than those who are unaware. The fourth trait I'm proposing is zeal. Zealous characters are difficult to stop. They have boundless energy that turns away minor deterrents such as open wounds or daunting tasks. They do not falter, nor do they bow to great threats that apathetic characters would. And then the last proposed stats, and again, we can change these later if we find something more fitting, is spirit. Spirited characters can sense something more of the material world. They can feel the hairs on the back of their necks when there's a threat nearby. Spirit is awareness of the supernatural as well as the last defense from dangers when there's nothing else left. May also help with mental influence that meek characters can be turned away from. And we don't have to stick to those. Those were just the 5 I thought would best fit. If there are other concepts that you think would fit better, by all means, we could probably discuss the next time. However, I do want to bring up one interesting factoid about these traits, but I want to see if you can spot these 5 traits. What is something that do you think is missing that most other systems might have?
I was just like, dude. Why are you leaving that out? But the word is escaping me. I know the concept, but I can't think of the word now.
Well, what's the concept? I think I left out.
I mean, other than entropy and other failure tactics, what are you thinking?
Well, the stat that is omitted that most other systems have a definite stat for is charisma.
See, that's what I was wondering. How are you including charisma as part? Because some people, depending on your culture, might say charisma is part of your might, as in you have that fortitude of it, but you are definitely thinking physical there. So
that's the cool thing about these vague concepts. You can apply charisma to all of them. If you were to say intimidate someone, you could say you're using might to influence them. If you're lying to someone, you could say you're using grace to outmaneuver them. If you are making a logical argument to convince someone of something, you could use your acuity. if you're trying to hype someone up, it's like, yeah, get ready for all this nonsense we're about to get into. That could be zeal. And finally, when you're speaking to like an outworldly source, it could be spirit. So what's really cool about this is that in your system, you might not even need charisma, because that might all be based on the approach of the character and what they intend to do when they speechify other characters.
Which is a good point, yeah.
And I kind of based this off of L5R, 5th edition, which doesn't have a charisma score. It's all based on physical or mental stats, and charisma is just, what's your approach, dude? What do you want this guy to think? It's basically what it came down to, and you use other stats to figure out whether or not this person is okay with you using that approach, or if they're like, nah, screw you, you're wrong. And I guess that's kind of time.
And actually, that was a perfect part to land on, because the next question I was going to ask you is, where does our merit-based system and gaining points using these things start affecting that too? But we're going to start covering that for next time, because that would probably feed into things like lineages and backstory, just a smidge, depending on, are you playing like someone who's an elder versus someone who's a brand new noob to the tribes and the covens and clans. So thank you for doing this for me, bro. He did most of the work to this document. So all the rounds of applause to Baka for doing this, especially while healing through what you've been going through health-wise, dude. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate it.
I have several new holes.
I had the same surgery you did, so I understand that very much.
Yeah. There was a coworker that phrased that very inappropriately last week, where I bent over. I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Oh no, Ernest, your holes!" And I'm like, instantly reminded me of Hell of a Boss. It's like, new hole when Blitz got shot.
On that note, everybody, take care of yourself. You've always been worth it. Bye.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push my mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind